Let me ask you something. What if the reason some people struggle with their garden is not because they planted the wrong crop, but because they planted at the wrong time and in the wrong way? What if there are moments when planting itself can actually set you back? Now that may sound strange at first, because everything we talk about here is about planting, growing, building abundance. But there are two dangerous reasons, very real reasons, why sometimes you should not plant at all. I remember walking past a neighbor's garden early one spring. The weather had just started to warm up. Sunlight was returning, the ground looked ready, and there was excitement in the air. And he had already planted everything. Rows were in, seeds were down. Plants were just starting to push through, but something did not sit right with me. So I walked over, knelt down, and touched the soil, cold, heavy, not alive yet. Few days later, the temperature dropped. Not just a little, but enough. And just like that, everything stalled. Some plants never came back. Others struggled for weeks, never fully recovering. Time was lost. Seeds were wasted. Energy was drained. And all because of one simple mistake: planting before the soil was ready. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is something many people do not understand. Soil has timing. It has seasons, not just above ground, but beneath it. Microbial life wakes up slowly. Soil temperature rises gradually. Biological activity builds over time. And if you plant before that system is active, your seeds do not enter a living environment. They enter a sleeping one. And when that happens, growth slows or stops completely. Now let me ask you, have you ever planted early, thinking you were getting ahead, only to find your crops lagging behind later? Drop that in the comments, because rushing the season is one of the most common ways people lose productivity without even realizing it. Now this is the first dangerous reason: planting too early, before the soil is ready. It feels like progress, but it often leads to delay. Now the second reason is even more overlooked, because it does not just affect timing, it affects the condition of the soil itself. And when people make this mistake, they do not just slow growth, they damage the very system that produces their food. And that second reason is planting into soil that is not prepared to support life. Now this one is even more dangerous, because it does not just delay your harvest, it can damage your soil for seasons to come. I remember another grower, hardworking, determined, did everything he could to get food in the ground. But he had one habit: he planted no matter what condition the soil was in. Too wet, he planted. Too compacted, he planted. Low in organic matter, he planted anyway. To him, planting meant progress. But what he did not realize was this: planting into unhealthy soil does not fix the problem. It multiplies it. Because when you plant into soil that is too wet, you compress it. You push out the air spaces. You create conditions where roots struggle to breathe. And when roots cannot breathe, they weaken. Sometimes they rot. Now combine that with soil that lacks organic matter, soil that has little life, little structure, and what you get is a system that cannot support strong growth. The seed may sprout, but it does not thrive. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is something most people do not think about. Every time you plant into poor conditions, you are training your soil to stay that way. Because instead of restoring it, you are working on top of a broken foundation, and over time, that foundation becomes harder to fix. Now let me give you a picture. Two people, same land, same season. The first person sees the soil is wet, heavy, not ready, but they plant anyway, because they do not want to fall behind. The second person waits. They improve the soil, they add organic matter, allow it to dry properly, let life return. Now a few weeks later, they both have crops in the ground, but the difference begins to show. The first person's plants are uneven, slow, struggling. The second person's plants are steady, strong, consistent. Same seed, different timing, different preparation, different results. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever planted just because you felt like you had to, even when the conditions did not feel right? Because that pressure, that feeling of needing to get something in the ground, leads a lot of people into this mistake. But here is the truth: planting at the wrong time, in the wrong soil, is not progress, it is delay. Now as we move forward, you are going to begin to see something clearly. These two dangerous reasons, planting too early and planting into unhealthy soil, they do not just slow things down, they quietly rob you of the abundance you are trying to build. But once you understand them, you begin to move differently, you stop rushing, and you start building. And once you begin to see these two mistakes clearly, you start to notice something most people miss. It is not just what you plant, it is when and where you plant that determines everything. Because planting is not just an action, it is a decision. And every decision either works with the soil or against it. Now I want you to picture a seed for a moment. Small, full of potential, ready to grow. But that seed does not control the outcome. The environment does. If the soil is cold, it waits or weakens. If the soil is compacted, it struggles to push roots. If the soil is lifeless, it has nothing to draw from. So, even though the seed is good, the result is poor. That is why understanding the condition of your soil is more important than rushing to plant. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is something experienced growers learn over time. Restraint is part of success. Knowing when not to plant is just as powerful as knowing when to plant. Because when you wait for the right moment, you are not losing time. You are protecting your outcome. Now let me give you a simple comparison again. One grower plants early into coal-heavy soil. The seeds sit, some rot, others sprout weakly. Weeks pass, and instead of gaining time, they have lost it. Now another grower waits, feels the soil, observes the conditions, waits until it is alive, workable, ready. Then they plant, and something different happens. The seed responds quickly, roots establish fast, growth begins with strength, and within a short time, they have caught up, and then surpassed. Same season, different understanding. Now let me ask you something. Which one actually got ahead? The one who rushed, or the one who waited and planted into life? Drop your answer in the comments. Because once this clicks, you stop chasing early results, and you start building lasting ones. Now here is something else to consider. When you plant at the wrong time or in the wrong conditions, you do not just affect that one crop, you affect everything that follows. Because weak plants do not contribute much back to the soil. They do not build organic matter well. They do not support strong microbial life. They do not leave behind a system that improves over time. But strong plants do. They feed the soil as they grow. They create better conditions for the next crop. They build momentum, and that is what we are after. Not just one good harvest, but a system that keeps producing. Now we are coming into the final part of this, because understanding these two dangerous reasons is powerful. But what matters most is how you apply them, and how they change the way you approach your soil from this point forward. And this is where everything settles into place, because now you can see it clearly. Those two dangerous reasons, planting too early and planting into soil that is not ready, they do not just slow your garden down, they shape your entire outcome. Now let us bring it all together. Planting too early puts your seed into a system that is not awake. Cold soil, low biological activity, slow response. What feels like getting ahead quietly becomes falling behind. And planting into unhealthy soil creates a weak foundation, compacted ground, poor structure, low life. What looks like progress becomes struggle. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now I want you to picture those two people one last time. Same land, same opportunity. The first person rushes. They plant early. They ignore soil condition. They focus on action over understanding. And season after season, they work hard. But the results never fully match the effort. The soil does not improve. The harvest is inconsistent, and the cycle continues. Now the second person moves differently. They observe first. They touch the soil, feel its condition, watch the season. They prepare the ground, add organic matter, allow life to build, and when the moment is right, they plant. Not early, not late, but at the right time, into the right conditions. And over time, everything begins to shift. The soil becomes more alive, plants establish quickly, growth becomes steady, reliable, strong. And then comes the difference that really matters. The harvest, more food, better quality, greater consistency. That is not luck. That is alignment. Now here is the part I want you to carry with you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in your garden is wait. Wait for the soil to warm. Wait for the structure to improve. Wait for life to return. Because when you plant into living soil, you are not forcing growth, you are working with it, and when you work with it, the results begin to multiply. Now as you move forward, do not measure your progress by how fast you plant, measure it by how well your soil is prepared, because prepared soil produces prepared harvests. And prepared harvests build strong families, strong health, real stability. So wherever you are right now, whether you have rushed before or planted into conditions that were not ready, do not worry. You can change direction. You can slow down. You can begin again, this time with understanding, because the soil beneath your feet is not just waiting for seeds, it is waiting for the right moment. And when that moment comes, and you plant with wisdom instead of urgency, you will not just grow crops, you will begin to grow something far greater, abundance. And before you walk away from this, there is one final truth you need to hold on to, because this is not just about when not to plant, it is about learning how to think like the soil. Now most people see planting as the beginning. They believe the moment the seed goes into the ground, that is when progress starts. But a wise grower understands something deeper. Progress begins before the seed ever touches the soil. It begins with preparation. It begins with patience. It begins with understanding. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now picture those same two people one last time. The first person is always in a hurry. They plant early. They plant into poor conditions. They move fast because it feels productive. But season after season, they stay in the same place, working harder, but never quite breaking through. Their soil never fully improves. Their harvest never becomes reliable. And slowly, they begin to believe that abundance is just hard to reach. Now the second person slows down just enough to learn. They begin to see that soil has timing, that it needs warmth, structure, life. They understand that planting is not the first step, preparation is. So they adjust. They wait when needed. They build the soil. They plant with intention. And over time, everything begins to change. The soil becomes easier to work. Plants respond faster. Growth becomes predictable. And then something powerful happens. Their garden stops being uncertain. It becomes dependable. Food begins to show up consistently. Costs begin to go down. Confidence begins to rise. That is what wealthy food does. It removes pressure. It creates stability. It gives you something you can rely on. Now here is the deeper part of this. When you plant at the wrong time, or into the wrong soil, you are not just risking your harvest, you are delaying your future. But when you plant with understanding, you are building momentum. Each season gets better. Each harvest improves the next. That is how small gardens become powerful. That is how simple soil becomes a source of strength. Now I want to leave you with one simple question. The next time you step into your garden, before you plant anything, pause, look at the soil, feel it, and ask yourself, is this soil ready? Or am I just ready? Because those are two very different things. And the answer to that question will shape everything that grows from that moment forward. Because the soil beneath your feet is not just waiting for seeds, it is waiting for wisdom. And when wisdom meets living soil, abundance appears. Remember, wealthy foods lead to health, strength, and peace of mind. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to subscribe for more practical wisdom and simple methods to help you grow abundance right where you are. Until next time, keep growing.